what is the immediate threat to the indigenous people here?
Well, there's an immediate threat of a pipeline burst and a pipeline accident, of course, if the oil starts to flow. And we've seen that all across. And North Dakota doesn't like to report its spills. There are hundreds of spills that North Dakota has not reported even just this year. And that's true from just looking at the media, but also independent reporting. But let me just break down the danger of this from start to finish. When this oil supposedly is coming from the Bakken Shale, that place is a disaster area. They are drilling and fracking all throughout this another Native American reservation, Fort Berthold, and that has created water contamination of their groundwater. That has created surface contamination of the lakes, rivers, and streams in the area. That is venting off methane and other toxic compounds in the area that are giving people serious medical problems. Everywhere that the fracking industry goes, they vent off toxic chemicals into the atmosphere. That is very, very bad for human health, especially bad for in vitro, right? For pregnant mothers and for children and for the elderly. So you're seeing a health crisis and a toxic disaster area where the oil is coming from. Okay, then you put it in the pipeline. Anywhere along the pipeline, that pipeline can break and can contaminate water supplies. It can contaminate the ground. And when you have an aquifer that gets oil in it, it's hard enough to clean up the Gulf of Mexico or a river. Surface water is difficult, but when you have groundwater, you have toxic chemicals, petroleum, oil and gas. That is toxic, right? These are the fuels of death, as Van Jones would call them. That is inside the ground. It is stuck to the particles, and it's almost impossible to clean because you have plumes of oil, you have plumes of benzene, you have plumes of all the toxins that are getting into that pipeline, and they start to seep into the ground. And I've been in places where this stuff has not been able to be cleaned up, for decades, and never will be cleaned up. You just have to walk away at that point. That means you've got to truck water in, you got to purify every single drop of water. This is energy insanity, right? Because water is more important than oil in the long run, for sure, and in the short run too. So then, let's say they get the oil to port, that means it's going to get burned. That's bad for the climate. So James Hansen has said, fracked oil and tar sands oil, that's game over for the planet. What do we mean by game over for the planet? Well, we're at such a state of climate change right now. We've warmed the Earth by 1 degree Celsius. Now, that doesn't sound like so much, right? But it's enough to get everything on the planet that needs to stay frozen to start melting. If you warmed your temperature by 1 degree Celsius, you'd feel it. If you warmed it by 2 degrees Celsius, you wouldn't be able to get out of bed. 3 degrees Celsius, you might be dead. So we're at 1 degree right now. We've got enough carbon dioxide and methane in the atmosphere now, greenhouse gases that trap heat, to bring us to 1.5 degrees no matter what we do. So for all intents and purposes, we're at 1.5 degrees. At 2 degrees, we bring about an unstoppable process of 5 to 9 meters of sea level rise. We lose 30 to 50% of the species on the planet. We're talking about increased drought, increased flooding, increased extreme weather events like the hurricanes, because you've got a much wetter atmosphere, a much, much more acidic ocean, which starts to kill off species in the oceans. We're talking about a Mad Max vision of the apocalypse, because 5 to 9 meters of sea level rise, the United Nations estimates 800 million climate refugees. That means say goodbye to New York City, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Boston, Providence, Baltimore, New Orleans, Charlotte, Berkeley, Oakland, the list goes, Miami, half of Florida goes underwater. The list goes on, and that's just in the United States. Not to say anything about other countries all over the world, because this is the whole sea rising. These are the kinds of impacts that this pipeline is going to have. So when these people are taking their stand at Standing Rock, they're not just standing for this water right behind us here, for their little area. They're standing for the people who are getting fracked in the other part of North Dakota. They're standing for everybody along the pipeline route, which goes along Iowa and goes along Illinois. They're standing for everybody who lives in a major coastal city. They're standing for everybody on the earth. We stand with Standing Rock means they're fighting our fight. They're fighting our fight in New York City and in Brooklyn and in Berkeley and in Oakland, all up and down our coastlines. And obviously, climate change is a major motivating factor which bringing people out here. It's causing a community environment to a new set of values that I can feel it. You can feel it the minute you get to camp. People want to talk to you. They're open. They're honest. They're loving towards each other. That's what we need to combat climate. You just shot a brave young protector. Right. This is her 3rd day in a row. I interviewed her yesterday. You just shot her going up and giving the police lollipops. Yeah, well, giving the cops lollipops is one way of doing it. But I think it's indicative. I said, aren't you scared? She said, no, I'm not here to be scared. I'm here to be alive. I'm here to stand for the water. And she said, what are they going to do, shoot me? I said, yeah. She goes, well, I mean, that's what it has to be. That's what it has to be.
I made a vow to help the people and do what I can and protect the people. That if it means not going home, it means not going home.
I think everybody's prepared for whatever comes in the end to see this fight, the pipeline, stopped.
Look at the great tradition of peaceful, nonviolent civil disobedience that comes from Henry David Thoreau in the United States of America. Then that passes on to Mahatma Gandhi. When the salt mine protests happened in India, the people walked up to the salt mines and they were clubbed, and many of them, they didn't fight back. Many of them died. That was incredible bravery. I was terrified to go even anywhere near there, with holding a camera in my hand. I got visions going through my head of all sorts of mayhem. And she just walks right up, I've never witnessed that in my life. I thought that was incredible. And to be honest, this is what we have to do. We have to involve ourselves in a new set of values. We're talking about community, human rights, democracy, creativity, innovation, love, resilience. Those are the things that I call the things that climate can't change, right? Those are our civic virtues. And you're seeing them on display out here. So if you want to be a part of that, you don't need more crap from Walmart. You don't need another TV. You don't need another car. You don't need these consumer goods. And I'm not saying that for most Americans. They're just fighting really hard just to get by. People are working 3 jobs. Economic inequality are such a state that we're all very much in a place where there's a lot of economic inequality and economic oppression. But think about what you really need in life. And what you really need in life is clean air, clean water, and a loving and supportive community around you. That's what they've got over here. That's what these people are trying to destroy. Why?
I want to get into, this isn't going to be news to you, but a lot of the viewers don't know. So Donald Trump has investments in Energy Transfer Partners. Energy Transfer Partners is the company building this pipeline. Hillary Clinton, I just saw today, one of her top bundlers raised $100,000 for her. Her husband, stock in Energy Transfer Partners. Al Gore, who was on stage with Hillary Clinton, this climate change champion, Al Gore, supposedly, you would know more about that than I, is on stage with the same woman who said, well, yes or no, do you support it? It was a mixed word salad of vomit, and she basically said, under the right circumstances. When I confronted her campaign strategist at the last debate, he said, well, I'm not well-versed on her position. A dodge.
Whose position?
Joe Benenson was not well-versed on Hillary Clinton's position. President Obama, was lauded for the Paris Climate Accord and his role in that. I mean, this is all going on. He's in the White House.
This is in direct violation of the Paris Climate Accord. This is in direct violation of the Paris Treaty.
Explain that.
Well, look, I just said, if we get to 1.5, we're at 1.5 degrees already. The Paris Climate Accord says we shouldn't go above 1.5 degrees. That's our aspirational goal, certainly not to 2 degrees. So what does that actually mean? It means that we are only going to burn the fossil fuels that we know about and not continue to develop new fields. The Bakken oil shale is a new field. We're talking about no more fracking, no more fracking, no more fracking. We cannot frack and support the Paris Climate Accords. Period. End of story. That is the science. That is on the paper. That's on the books. In fact, 80% of our fossil fuel reserves have to stay in the ground. That means we not only have to not do this, but we have to scale back 80% of what we're using. That means we got to make a transition to renewable energy. We have to do it fast. We have to do it quick, with everybody involved. It's like what we said in the Democratic platform, which I had a part in writing. I was on the Democratic Platform Committee, right, for Bernie Sanders. I was a Sanders surrogate. He appointed me to the Platform Committee. We said we need a World War II-like mobilization on renewable energy in the United States. That's in the platform. Hillary Clinton is against it. Barack Obama is not pushing that. We need to see that because that would shut this thing down overnight. If they obeyed the Paris Climate Accords and the Democratic platform, absolutely. What does that mean? In the 1939, 1940s, FDR, right, the last president from New York,
The last progressive president.
he was confronted with the Nazis and with the rise of fascism in Europe. And he realized that you had a country in the Great Depression that had to not only get out of that depression, but had to militarize in order to defeat that threat. He could see the threat. And he went to the auto industry in the United States, which was the largest concentration of industrial power in the world. And he said, all right, well, we need you to start making planes and tanks because we need to defeat Hitler in Europe. And they said, well, Mr. President, we'll try, but it's going to be hard, when we're making all these cars. And he said to them, no, you don't understand. We're going to ban the private sale of automobiles in this country. That was leadership. And in 7 years, they built the greatest war machine the world has ever seen. Now, we see some of that war machine over there, unfortunately. But to be honest, that was the only thing that could defeat fascism. That was the only thing that could stop the Holocaust. And that's leadership. We said in the Democratic platform, the climate change problem is as great of a threat. When you're talking about 800 million climate refugees, when you're talking about destabilization of the very pillars of civilization itself because of climate change, that threat has to be assessed in the same way. And that's what Bernie Sanders was saying. That's what we're saying as this movement. That's what it says in the Democratic platform. It says, no, we got to stop this shit right now. And we've got to start building renewable energy in a hurry. Don't tell me we can't do it. Don't tell me the United States of America is not up to the challenge. China just committed in the last bilateral agreement with the United States to build 1 terawatt of renewable energy power, 1,000 gigawatts of renewable energy power, solar and wind. So that means that's 20% of China's need, and they're going to do it in 15 years. That would be 100% of the United States. Right. That's all of our energy use, and they're going to do that in 15 years. Why couldn't we do it in 7? Why couldn't we do it in 5? We're the USA.